What's up, everyone? Roz with Union Gaming, and this is going to be the fourth episode of the story of my life. And the last video we left off, we were talking about some of my exes up until about 2001. And my relationship with Jess, I was a little bit, I guess, bummed out about it. Looking back, I should have stayed with her, but I didn't, and that is in the past, so let's move forward. A couple months out, or not a couple months, a couple of days, maybe even a week after we broke up, I was at the bar with my normal crew, and while we were out, I ran into Deanna again. Now, Deanna, I had mentioned that I had ran into her back in October of the previous year. And when we were talking, me and her had seemed to be the only two people on this planet that have ever seen this movie. Shriek if you know what I did last Friday the 13th. Now, this movie is a terrible, terrible movie, and it is a scary movie ripoff. But me and her are the only two people I think have ever seen this movie, and it was so dumb. But I actually own a copy of it on DVD. Anyhow, we reconnected. This is January 2001, and me and her were talking, and blah, blah, blah. We hit it off again. We exchanged phone numbers. And my best friend was out that night too, Bob. And Bob's going to get his own video at some point too, but not today. Um, Bob was like, no, don't go out with this woman. She's a terrible human being. She's blah, blah, blah this, blah, blah, blah that. She has had so many different sexual partners, and she's been involved in three ways, and she has two kids to two different men. And like, this is 2001. And there was still a little bit of a stereotype attached to it. And if I'm being super petty about things, I will attach a stereotype about that kind of shit to people. But, I mean, two kids to two different men in 2025. I mean, honestly, my kid's mom was two and done. She has two kids to two different men. And I don't judge her for that. So, whatever. Anyway, she had two kids. And her kids, I never really got around. I was never really around kids. Like, if they were younger or older, I think me and Deanna's relationship would have went better. But we were at a weird, awkward age. One was 6 and the other was like 9 or 10, 12. I don't know. I really don't remember. But no, it wasn't 10. Might have been 10. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It was a really weird age, and yeah, you're dealing with two different kinds of personalities. The daughter was quiet and nice, and the boy was he was autistic. There was no way, shape, or form to deny, other than the fact that he was very autistic. He would stay up all night. He would fight with everything. If things didn't go his way, he had a meltdown. Um, Never got the treatment, at least when I was with him, got the treatment that he needed. But anyway, that's not here nor there. That's not me. That's really not my place to even say because I wasn't the father. Anyway, me and her hit it off. The infamous story of I bought a girl a car is with Deanna. She was having car problems. I had money saved up. We were 2 or 3 months into our relationship. We I decided that, she was like, we should move in. I'm like, all right, well, you need a car, so why don't I just buy you a car, and like we'll consider this the rent for like the next 10 months or whatever, and blah blah blah. So I bought her a $2,000 van, and I moved in, and that was the first time I moved out of my parents' house, and it was not a good experience. The children were big issues for me. Being 24 years old and having kids running around that are that age, and me becoming like a father figure, it was not a good scenario for me at all. Um, I especially after I just broke up with Jess because I didn't want to have kids. That's the thing that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense because that was one of the deciding factors of why me and Jess broke up. And here I am with two kids that aren't mine, but they're all. It was a mess for me. And it was also during this time that I switched careers. I ended up going from retail with Walmart to selling insurance. And the problem with selling insurance is if you're good at it, you can make a lot of money at it. And if you're really good at it, you can make a lot of money at it. You don't really have to do a whole lot of time to do it. So I'm making, what was I doing? It was 2001. I am making, what was I making? Making 550, 650 a week. And I'm gonna pull out my magic time traveling device here. Let's find out what that is. Let's say I think it was like 650. It might have even been 700 a week. Let's go 700 a week times 52. No, not divided by 52. Times 52. So I was making $36,000 a year in 2001. Okay, $36,000 a year in 2001. Nope, nope, nope. That's not what I want. Is the equivalent of $65,342 in today's money. So I was doing good. I was working maybe 20 hours a week and I was making this kind of money. And the problem with that is I had a lot of free time and a lot of extra cash. And a 24-year-old with like that kind of cash, what's he going to do? Started drinking, and I started drinking a lot. Um, for the next year and a half, maybe, if I wasn't working, I was drinking. And the problem with that is you try to maintain a healthy relationship when you introduce drugs and alcohol into a situation, and we're going to get into the drug part a little bit later. It doesn't work well at all. And I was in a situation I wasn't happy in because, I didn't want to be a father. And I'm not going to say that I'm not going to romanticize this and say Deanna was a really good person, because honestly, my district manager, I worked in the district office of the insurance company I worked for, and our district manager was there all the time, and me and her both interviewed for the job that I got. And Deanna scared my district manager. And my direct boss asked me one time, he's like, exactly, how did you end up with her? Because he puts my personality as the type of personality that I'm cool with anything until you really push it back, or you push me too far, and then I'm going to push back. But otherwise, I just go with the flow. Deanna's the type of person that if you were the last two people surviving at the Alamo, you would want her by your side because you had a chance of winning with her. She was mean, she was outspoken, she was kind of a bitch, and all these situations combined with my drinking, it didn't go well. Some of the things though and this is when I first started noticing that I was starting to get it. I actually didn't notice this until now, but one of the things that this series is going to bring up is, like, if you pay attention to people long enough, you will understand something about people, and that is everybody lies. Not one person doesn't lie, and everybody who does lie gets caught in their lies eventually. Deanna was no exception. She was hard up for cash, always. She couldn't balance her budget, and she was making about as much as I was. But she couldn't balance her budget, day-to-day expenses with two kids. She was always broke. She shut off the cable to the house because she couldn't afford it, which is fine. If we can't afford cable, we can't afford cable. That's fine. And then later on, about 3 months later, the cable gets turned back on for no reason whatsoever. She can afford it again. And then she's borrowing money off of me to get her through to payday so she can afford food for the kids and stuff. I don't honestly, I honestly don't know. I mean, as I said, I was drinking an awful lot, so a lot of this shit doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But whatever. It is whatever. Eventually, I had enough and I walked away. I couldn't deal with it. And it was over the house, okay? It was maintaining the cleanliness of the house. Now, I'm not the most neat freak person there is, okay? But if you have to wade through, like, and and I'm serious. Wading is the way to describe it. If you have to wade through garbage and toys, like, there's not a bare spot on the floor, you got a problem. And if your kids aren't maintaining it or helping you maintain it, you're also a bad parent. I cleaned the house one day. And I mean, I cleaned the house. I cleaned the bedroom. I cleaned the living room. I cleaned the kitchen. I separated the kids' toys. I put the kids' toys in their rooms so they could deal with it. And the house stayed that way for about a day. Within a week or so, the house was completely trashed again. I cleaned it one more time, top to bottom, cleaned it top to bottom. And I told her, I cleaned the house. I'm not doing this again. I just, we need to maintain this, okay? A couple of weeks later, I came home. I opened up the living room, or I opened up the door to the house, and I looked in the living room, and I'm like, I can't fucking do this. And I moved out. I moved out. I got home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and by 5 p.m. I was completely moved out of her place. I I couldn't deal with it anymore. Like like it wasn't about respect, but it was also a little bit about respect. But it wasn't like I feel so disrespected. I clean. It had nothing to do with it. It was just the fact that, my opinion, or what and I didn't really ask for a whole lot in my opinion of this relationship. I just kind of wanted, not to have to trip over shit walking through the living room. So anyway, I moved out, and then I called her and let her know I moved out, and we dated. We didn't break up right there, but might as well have. A couple months later, I'm not. I'm working. I'm at the bar like I always was on my nights off, and I'm completely hammered like normal. And one of the bouncers comes up to me and says, "Hey, you want a job?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, we had a guy who quit on us, and you're here every night of the week anyway, and we're looking for someone reliable. Do you want a job?" So I had the best interview of my life, and this is good. The Loomis is going to get its own storyline too, or own video. But I got this job offer at the Loomis, and the Loomis was minimum wage job. I got a free beer at the end of every shift, and I got 40% off of the food in the restaurant. Okay, I fucking hated selling insurance. I hated who I was. I hated the fact that I was becoming this person who was well on his way to becoming a career alcoholic. So, anyway, I was working both jobs for a while, and then the insurance agency found out I was working at a bar, and they were like, "Well, we have this non-compete clause, blah, blah, blah. So, we're giving you the opportunity to resign. And if you don't resign, we're going to terminate you." So, I was like, "All right, fine. Here's my resignation." And my boss is like, "Well, what are you quitting for?" And I was like, this is the way it is. And it's like, selling insurance isn't my life's work. It isn't what I want to do with my life. It's not who I envision. And I'm like, honestly, 40% off the restaurant and a free beer at the end of every shift sounds really good to me right now. And he's like, "I'll buy you a case of beer a week if you stay on." Like, that's, it's not what I want to do. So I went and worked at the Loomis. And when I started working at the Loomis, this was really the death knell between me and Deanna, because Deanna was convinced, because I worked in a bar, and she's like, at 2 o'clock in the morning, everybody in the bar is looking to hook up. Everybody that works, her brother worked at the bar. Her brother was married, but apparently everybody at that bar was sleeping around with everybody else. They were, but that's not the point. Um, but she was convinced that me and her I was gonna hook up with somebody. Well, we broke up, and I started. One of the waitresses and I became really good friends, Long story short, I ended up moving in with her, and it was literally a roommate situation. It was me and Jen. We moved in together. Um, Jen was another person I just like living with her, even as roommates. Jesus Christ. Um, we would go out and party together and stuff at different parties and so forth. But it was like I was getting to the point where I was getting burned out on just drinking all the time. And Jen's lifestyle, Jen would be like knocking on my door in the bedroom door, or even going into my bedroom and waking me up at like 2 in the morning. It's like, hey, you want to watch a movie? I'm like, fuck no, it's 2 in the morning. Uh, so that was that. I lived there for a while, and then Jen got sick, and Jen ended up moving back down to Pittsburgh, I believe. And I moved out of the apartment because the apartment was in Jen's lease. Like Jen, I wasn't on the lease. I was subletting, whatever. So anyway, I went back to retail work. I'm still working at the Loomis, but I went back to retail work, and I started dating this girl named Amy. And Amy, I had met a year prior. She was a gamer, D&D, Magic, that kind of stuff. And this is really the darkest time of my life, and it's weird that this is the most successful relationship I've ever had because it went on for 9.5 years. But Amy was the best way to describe Amy is Amy was a user. Amy was a narcissist. She was a gaslighter and a manipulator. And she worked her magic, I guess, as a narcissistic manipulator will do, and had me all kinds of fucked up. She would self harm. She would cut herself and stuff, seeking attention. Um, she was convinced that anybody who drank any bit of alcohol was going to become a violent alcoholic, like her father was, or like her stepfather was. She was convinced that I was constantly cheating on her with everybody that I talked to. Any woman I talked to, I was cheating on her with. I'm not even joking on that one. If I mentioned I was friends with a girl uh, at work, and me and her had one of the same college classes together, and if we missed a day, we'd borrow each other's notes for that class. But no, we were sleeping together, 100%. We dated from 2002 to 2004, and we broke up in 2004 because I couldn't deal with her crap anymore. I was at the point where I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. None of the crap you want to do makes any sense to me. I'm done. And then she calls me at work to explain to me that she's pregnant, which I'm like, fuck. So I ended up going back to her. She wasn't pregnant. She was just manipulating me. She manipulated me into buying my house. Said she was going to leave me if I didn't buy this house. Which, honestly, looking back, I love my house. It's my house. I hope she watches this video because this is my fucking house, not yours. But whenever we were together, we lived in this house. Like, he was always constantly buying or getting more dogs. We had 1.7 fucking dogs in this house. And anytime something was going on, she'd want a dog, and we'd get a dog. When we first started dating, this is kind of fun story too. When we first started dating, she gave me for like $3,000, I think it was, and to put in the bank account. And like when we moved in together and stuff, like we were using that $3,000 she had because she only worked a while, and then she ended up going on disability. But yeah, she gave me this $3,000 when we broke up finally. Like, and this was in 2002, and and then she when we broke up in 2011, she wanted this money back, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? That money's long gone. Besides, I've been supporting our asses for 9 years now, or whatever, as a sole income plus your disability, which you paid nothing towards this house with, and you barely bought any food for this place, so whatever. Sure. Um, but yeah, she manipulated me constantly. She convinced me that I was a violent narcissist, and I needed to go on antidepressants and antipsychotics and stuff. And I was drugged up pretty well for a long time. And it's so much so that, her and the doctor that she had me going to, they got to the point where they were fucking with my medication so much that it almost killed me. I was off work for about a month because I had a chemical imbalance in my head in like 2010 that it almost killed me. When Amy and I Amy was very much manipulative. She would manipulate me in ways. She would call me at work and say I needed to come home right now because there was an emergency, and the emergency was one of the dogs growled at her. It was my dog that growled at her, so my dog had to go, or blah blah blah, or my dog needed to be medicated, or she would go onto these depressive states where I had to babysit her 24/7 while she got her medication straightened out, and I'd have to be off work, and it was. And again, I was also the only income. She never supported anything in this house other than spending money. She would be like, well, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to remodel the house, we need to do this, blah blah blah, you're going to use your bonus on this. She was very 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 giving with my money. Let's roll around to about 2010. 2010 rolls around. I decided I didn't want to be on any of these antipsychotics or antidepressants anymore, so I got off of them. And shit went south real fast with us in our relationship. She wanted to do this and this and this and this, and she talked about how we could do this and this and this until it was time to do all this, and then all of a sudden none of this was even possible with her. One of the things was she wanted to move to Pittsburgh, and her uncle had apartments down in Pittsburgh that we could have rented and stuff until blah blah blah. Well, I applied to a job down in Pittsburgh, and holy shit, she didn't want to do that. We can't do that. My uncle doesn't have places for us, blah, blah, blah. And, you started seeing chinks in the armor, so forth. Um, Again, any girl I talked to, she was 100% convinced I was sleeping with them. I decided I was going to leave retail again. I was going to get a government job with United States Investigative Services, and I was going to leave Walmart altogether. Now, I was making really good money as a Walmart manager then, and I left in 2011. And it's funny how fast, with that pay cut from going from a Walmart manager to a government worker, how fast she fucking disappeared. It was it was almost comical how fast she disappeared. I left Walmart in September 2011. Like in no, no, I left there. Yeah, it was September, and I started in October of 2011 at USIS. By November, she was gone, which once again proves to me that she was only after the money. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of a backstory here, a little bit whatsoever about Roz Jr.'s mom here. Roz Jr.'s mom used to work for me when I worked at Walmart. And Walmart has this thing called the open door policy, which means if you ever need to speak to a manager, you can. And I take this open door policy very seriously. So much so that even if the person doesn't work for the company anymore, even if I don't work for the company anymore, if they want to talk to me about something, I will listen to them. And Liam's mom reached out to me in September of that year. I had to make the excuse. I'm not kidding. I had to make an excuse that I went out golfing with my friend Alex and his father-in-law Gene, so I could sneak away to go meet with Ash so we could talk about whatever she needed to talk about. Now, this part of the story, she had just moved back from Texas. Things weren't going good for her. And that's about all I'm going to say about this story, because this isn't my story, it's her story. But we talked. We talked for about 3 hours one day. We went up to Hassan Park and we had a nice conversation out in the park. And she was convinced. She was like, you need to delete this woman and this woman off your Facebook profile because they're both trying to sleep with you. One of them was Ash. Anyway, November rolls around. Me and Amy get into this huge fucking fight. Like, huge fucking fight. She gets mad at me. She moves out. Now, this is not unheard of for her. She would get mad at me every now and then, and she would move out. And she would move down to Pittsburgh with her uncle for a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. And then eventually she'd come back and, like, we'd work things out because blah, blah, blah. I had time to cool off. I had time to cool off, even though she's the one that moved out. Anyway, she had moved out. I was kind of depressed. I was posting, like, fucking dumb shit on Facebook. And I get a message from Ash. And Ash is like, are you alright? I'm like, no, not really. And like, blah, blah, blah. I'm kind of crushing on somebody, which it was true. I was crushing on somebody. I was actually crushing on the other person that Amy told me to unfriend. Because I was the first person she's like, this person's trying to sleep with you. And like, the first thing I think about is, well, you know, if you're going to accuse me of doing some shit, and now that I'm back to like perfect clarity on shit too. Like, you're going to accuse me of cheating on you. Well, fuck it. I'm gonna. Blah, blah, blah. Me and Ash is like, yeah, Ash is like, oh, I get it. I'm crushing on somebody too. Blah, blah, blah. I had this crush on this guy for 6 years. So I was like, well, just fucking tell the dude. And she fires off sentence in French on her Facebook Messenger. And translated into English, roughly, it means, I just want you to know I'm in love with you. And so apparently Ash had a crush on me. So Amy was right. One of the two people were trying to sleep with me. So, hey, I'll give you credit. Well, you were right on about one of them. So Ash and I went out. We went out and we had probably one of the coolest dates I've ever had in my entire life. I worked until like 9 that night. Got home, grabbed a quick shower, fed the dogs, because God knows Amy wasn't going to take all 12 of her fucking dogs with her when she moved out. And then I went and picked Ash up, and we went down to the villa. And we had dinner at the villa, and then we ended up hanging out all night at my place. We watched movies, literally all night. We were talking about movies. We were talking about kids, future, blah, blah, blah. Did I want a kid? And like, yeah, I want a kid. I wanted a son. I wanted a son named Liam. Blah, blah, blah. By 9 a.m. on November 11th, 2011, I looked out the window, actually looked out this window right here, and we had about 3 inches of fucking snow on the ground. It snowed that night. It was wild. So I went and drove her back across town to her house. And I mean, we were up all night, so I slept for a little while. And then I woke up and I was like, man, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. And like, I haven't had a date like that where I had fun and I wasn't like the bad guy, and I wasn't just the asshole for so long. I was like, man, if anything's gonna go on between, like, if anything's gonna happen, it's gonna be me and Ash. If I ever have a child, it's gonna be with her. And so I made a phone call when I woke up that afternoon, And I called Amy and I'm like, hey, so I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I need you to come get your shit. All right. I'm not playing this on again, off again stuff. I want to know when you're going to be out of the fucking house. And she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, you moved out. And I've been thinking about it, and you haven't called me in 4 days. I haven't talked to you since you moved out. So I'm assuming it's over. And I'm not playing the let's get back together again game. When are you going to get your shit out of my house? Well, apparently this was one of Amy's, well, we're going to get back together games. And she came back and she blah, 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 blah. She was again trying to trap me. She would be walking around this house, nothing but a bra and panties, trying to seduce me, which I was having none of because I'd go like, nope, I don't care. I'm going to go hang out at Bob's, or I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go see a movie or whatever. And I'd go hang out with Ash. And she wrote up this fucking contract, which is funny as shit because it wasn't a legal contract. It was just her trying to exercise her will on me. But blah, blah, blah. Like, you're not to have guests at the house while I'm moving out and so forth. And blah, blah, blah. And you will pay for any STD treatment I have to endure. And I'm like, we haven't slept together in months, but whatever. Sure, cool, whatever. Yeah, it was a long thing. About a month later, she's gone. I'm like, "Are you getting the rest of your shit or not?" And she's like, "No," but she never responded. I was like, "Fine, fuck it. It's been 30 days. Per our agreement, you had 30 days to get your shit out. Fuck it. The rest of this stuff's mine. Get the fuck out." So Ash and I started dating, and there's a lot of things I want to talk about Amy, because she was very manipulative, very controlling, and it was funny because every time she would get really mad at me, she would just slap her hands at her hips. I pick up on nuances when I talk to people a lot, and if you start doing something that's a little quirky, and then you continue to do it, I kind of, but yeah, anytime she'd get mad, she'd be like, and then slap her hips, and I'm like, it just like, I don't get it, but whatever. Um, this isn't going to be the end of Amy because Amy does pop her head up a couple of other times in my life, but this is the end of my relationship with her. So, yeah. Now, the next video will go on to Ash. But Amy wanted me to spend money on her constantly. Amy wanted to remodel the house. Amy wanted us to build the fence in the backyard. Amy wanted this dog and this dog and this dog and this dog and this dog. We had two Labradors, a Chihuahua, a Pomeranian, two Corgis, a Husky. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like, and and a Beagle. I forgot Dexter. Dexter was my baby, named after Dexter Morgan, the serial killer from the TV show, and he fucking hated Amy. Should have been a sign. Um, but yeah, she was a manipulative bitch, and she gaslighted me. Oh, I was a violent person. I was a violent person. She threatened. Okay, so this is how I was a violent person according to her. Liam's bedroom door is broken, and I'm going to tell you why it's broken. Because Christmas Eve, I want to say it was 2008, Amy decided that she was going to hurt herself again by getting a kitchen knife out and start cutting at her wrists or whatever. And she went into what is now Liam's bedroom and locked the door. And I know this because I watched her take the knife up into that room. And I knocked on the door and I tried to get in, and she was in one of her moods, and I yelled at her. So I shoulder blocked into the door to break it off its hinges to get into the room to make sure she wasn't hurting herself. She threatened to call the police on me because I broke into this bedroom with a shoulder block, and I was terrifying her, even though she had a knife and she had several cuts on her wrists and so forth. Other things she'd do with self-harm too was She did the same thing at my parents' house one time. She cut herself really hard in the basement. We ended up calling the ambulance to come get her. I am interviewed by the police constantly. She would disappear at times. She would wander out into the, like, to get attention. And I mean, it was all attention based. Okay. She would, when we first started dating, her mom was a horrible, horrible, horrible human being. And she had to get out of her mom's house because her mom and her stepdad were horrible, horrible people. Her mom and her stepdad let us live with them for 3 years. Yeah, and in those 3 years, her mom and her stepdad, not horrible people at all. But she lied a lot. She manipulated. She was probably the worst person I've ever dated in my entire life, and that's an overall standpoint with her manipulations and everything. There's another Ashley that and Katie. They're tied for the absolute craziest exes I have for totally different reasons. But yeah, as far as manipulation goes and lying and gaslighting, she diagnosed me as being a narcissist, which I mean I do love myself, but I'm not always right. So sorry, hate to break it to you, I'm not a narcissist. A narcissist would never admit that he's not always right. Yeah, there was just I look back at that time and I thank God that Ash did what she did when she did, because if she didn't even make that, I might have probably taken Amy back and we would have played this out one more fucking time. I'm trying to think of other dumb shit that Amy would say. Oh, if I had a drink, I would like one beer. I went out for a beer one night, and oh my god, she. If I went to see my friend Bob, that was something she was always all about. You need to go see your friends more. You need to go out, hang out with your friends. Okay, I live in Oil City. My best friend lives in Reimersburg. That is an hour and 15 minutes away from my house. Okay, I would leave here at 11 o'clock. So I'd get there 12:15. By 12:30, she'd be calling me asking me when I'm coming home. I just got here. Yeah, it was just. But I will say this one thing about Amy. Amy did give me an idea that has stuck with me for years afterwards. It has been kind of a calling card of mine that whenever I break up with somebody, if I'm living with them, that I leave a calling card now. We found this out after Amy moved out. She left a lot of canned food. Like, she didn't clean me out completely, but she left a lot of canned food in this house. Took the can openers. Genius. She also bent up my house key, and it was funny because her whole agreement was we weren't to destroy anyone's property, but she destroyed my house key because she didn't want another girl to have her keys. Well, we used your said broken house keys as a can opener to pry open some of the cans. But anyway, going forward, when I break up with somebody, I usually remove the toilet paper from the house and take it all with me. Uh, sorry, Katie, that happened. But I will be honest, I bought that fucking toilet paper, so it was mine. So, but yeah, anyway, that covers us up to 2011 right now. So, and in 2000, and somewhere in that period, guys, I do want to say this, that somewhere in that period of time, I did stop drinking. Like, I stopped drinking. I didn't have a beer for like 3 years at one point. I do have a beer occasionally. I'm sure you guys have seen me do it on my channel multiple times, but yeah. So yeah, that'll end up, this will wrap up video 4. And Amy, I hope you see this, and I hope you know I fucking hate you. So, talk to you guys later. Till next time. Later, taters.